Hi, this is David with entry number 639. It dawns on me that saying that number is kind of like an arbitrary thing that I've gotten in the habit of saying every time I do one of these. And, thinking about that number just now, 639. That's kind of a lot of these things. I think it's actually quite a lot. So, thinking about that, you know, and considering that I've probably done about 200 of these now, or not 200, but about 100, 130 with doing every other day. So, you know, it's quite a lot. Sorry about the yelling. There's a construction going on in front of me. They're finishing up this huge apartment building. It's probably about 20, 25 stories, maybe less than that, 20. There's a guy like dangling from the very top painting. That seems rather dubious, actually. The weather today is pretty magnificent. It said it was going to get kind of warm, like 75, but it actually feels like 70. So we got a nice breeze. I don't know if you can see the leaves slightly rustling over here, but it's pretty great right now. I just ate an ice cream cone. I have my little wrapper here. This is actually the very bottom of it, so it wasn't actually this small, but it was good. It was you can read that says ba la. So it was a vanilla one, but it had like peanuts in it, which was random and much appreciated. So I'm gonna keep this one a little shorter because the last one was fairly long. But what I wanted to say today is kind of like an addendum, or maybe a part two to the talk I had last time about potential. And I think the other piece, I did mention it, but the huge component of potential is perspective. Like I've talked about it before, perspective is probably the most important piece of yourself that you could really learn to utilize in a way that is very functional for humans to have good lives. It's easy to lose perspective. I think when I was talking, quite frankly, I might have lost perspective about how I am living currently. And I think it's actually pretty nice how I live currently. Of course, I don't think it's sustainable, obviously, but it is definitely something that shows you how powerful you can be when you actually try and like live for things other than pleasure. And I do have to remain pretty steadfast in my disgust with people who only live for pleasure and for satisfaction or whatever, because I do think that's a pretty selfish, strictly selfish way to live that I don't really agree with. But there was a movie I watched a while ago with my family called 40 Feet from Stardom, and it was about backup singers and how every backup singer you've ever heard or seen has desired to be, on the main stage, being the main attraction. And almost every single one of them has failed at doing that for various reasons. The majority of it actually being luck. And you kind of see these people who had such passion, who are most of the time better singers than the people they're singing for, backup for. And you see them having to cope with their failure. And I know that's a strong word, failure, but that's what it is, ultimately. And you see how each of them has coped. I think there's about 4 women, maybe a man or 2 in there, that have learned to live with the fact that they didn't or failed to become stars. And that whole movie is a lesson in perspective and potential, and learning that learning to live with failure and modifying your perspective in seeing that while you may have failed at becoming a star, you know, the life that you live in the now, the power of now, can make up for, or at least provide a sufficient cushion for that failure. And I strongly believe that if you do fail, and there will be many times that we all fail in our lives, learning and having correct perspective from that failure is ultimately where you learn the most in life. And whether or not, you're living to your potential, whether or not, you feel like you're living up to your potential, learning lessons from that failure or that success, I think, is really key. I know that sounds obvious, but I think a lot of people, me especially, kind of lose sight of the fact that, we have one life to live. And it's kind of a corny thing to say, but all I'm going to say it is, at this very moment, you're watching this, is the exact moment you will never, is at age you are. You're never going to be any older or any younger than you are at this very moment. And by learning to appreciate the nowness of life and the kind of gift that you have in the nowness, in recognition of being in the now, that's where you can really savor life. I just sat here, right here in this beautiful amphitheater thing, and enjoyed this ice cream cone in this perfect weather, and it was a blissful moment. I won't lie, it was really nice. And I appreciated it, and today's a beautiful day to be walking, to be living, to be alive. And whether or not I'm living up to my potential, I think this is a day that I may not remember for the rest of my life, but will serve as a kind of touchstone for in my nostalgia of the good times in Korea. So that's kind of it. That's all I wanted to say today. I know I said I would keep it short, but this one actually went kind of long again. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you in a couple days. Bye.